Meet Jimmy Feeman, the co-founder of NoBaked Cookie Dough and a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree. He's today's guest on Peaks and Valleys, and today's episode is a little bit longer than normal, so you get a lot of detail and a ton of vulnerability from Jimmy. Let's go.
The very highest moment, the best thing that's happened to me is at the very beginning of COVID, when kind of our whole team, not just me and Megan, but our entire company kind of came together to pivot the brand from we're running these 8 scoop shops to we're gonna sell cookie dough on the internet. We were already selling D2C, but being able to refocus the entire workforce and repurpose people's jobs, and nobody got fired, nobody got laid off. That was super cool. And that was March, April of 2020. Definitely the highest moment for me, because I think it was the first time that me and Megan truly felt like leaders, which is really cool. Oh, I feel like a CEO now. I don't feel like some guy or some girl running a company. So that was definitely the highest moment. Yeah, if I had to elaborate on it, just be you watch people that you've trained or brought onto the team become owners over what you're doing and the mission of the brand. That's super cool. You don't really get to experience that very much, and I didn't get to experience it until 2020, and that was 3 years into running the business. It was it took 3 years to finally feel that moment, and that was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that's probably pretty different than, I think when you're make your first hire and you have a small team, that's a feeling in itself, and that's probably super prideful. And as it grows, that's amazing, right? You're able to pay these people that are then able to pay their bills and live and all these other things. But then to be able to go through a hardship like that and then be fuck, how do we make sure that we can continue to do this, and you find that way, and they get evangelical about it, right? They become passionate about this new vision. I imagine that's probably incredibly fulfilling.
Yeah, I think it was 50% the moment and 50% the people, because we all stepped up far and above where we were supposed to be at the time. If you look back on the company at that point in time too, let's see, I was 26. Yeah, I was 26. Megan was 26. I think we were the oldest people working at the company. So you've got 20 people who are all sub 26, and that Nashville crew that was running our 3 scoop shops at the time was able to step up. The managers, everybody attached to the business, we had a marketing manager at the time too. Everyone was able to change what they were doing and do it in a way where you could tell they were passionate, and you could also tell they were really following our lead and doing what we needed to get done to survive. And I think that turned into thrive, which was really cool. It was very strange. If I could bottle that moment, that 2-3 months, I would bottle it and I'd sell it, but you can't bottle it.
How do you compare that to the feeling of getting that account that you've been working on for so long, right? Because that's a high that I talk about a lot, where I'm if I could have that and inject it in my veins every day, that would be amazing. Because that feeling of hunting for 12, 18 months, and then you get it, holy shit, that's what it's chasing the dragon. That's what it is for me, where that feels insane. But can you compare those two feelings? I know you felt that before too.
You can definitely compare them. So if you had Megan and interviewed her, she would say getting Kroger was her number one. So she set her sights on Kroger in early 2021. I think, yeah, it would have been February 2021, earlier than that. And we were okay, that's if we're gonna grow the brand into grocery eventually, because at the time we were still completely D2C, Kroger's our number one account. We partnered with WeStock. We got a bunch of surveys done. We were okay, cool. Kroger is our number one account. That's where all our customers are. And then you fast forward, it took 2 years finally going into Kroger, right? For Megan, that feeling is just like cocaine high. It's awesome.
Yeah.
For me, like same deal, but like it's very fleeting. Like those feelings for me, and I think it's a personality type thing. Like Megan really hangs her hat on that, and that's awesome. For me, I'm like on to the next. I stay like very focused on like my anxieties are mostly around like people pulling it off the shelf, not on like the retailer taking it. So in my opinion, if you have a good CPG brand, this is a hot take. If you have a good CPG brand and like you really know what you're doing and you have a good tasting product and like it has a cool value prop, so you have something that differentiates you, you're gonna get your shot. It might take 4 years, it might take 4 months, like, but you're gonna get a buyer that's like, hell yeah, man, let's go. Like whether it be at Target or Whole Foods or wherever, someone's gonna give you a chance. And then my anxiety has always been around like, is it gonna work for the next like 10 years or whatever?
Yeah, velocity. It's like,
Yeah.
Great, thanks for the shot, but like, will people buy this now?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you see shitty brands on shelf all the time, right? And they don't really last, but they get a chance, like you said.
Yeah. So that is why that feeling has not been the same as like the feeling that I had around like our team, like coming together and like killing it. There have been other times. Where like teams come together and like killed it. And I cannot like speak enough about like the people that have surrounded me and Megan for the last like 4 or 5 years. The beginning of the business, like we had a really, really hard time building a team. We were very young. We got surrounded by a lot of shitty people. And then I think as things got hard, you know, those people melt away because they don't want to be there for that. And then you find people that want to be sticking the hard times with you. And like those people, that's kind of what pumps me up. It's been like the high for me is like, I think as a kid and like as an athlete in high school or like just lots of different times in my life, I was always like, I really want to be a leader. I want to inspire people. I want to like help people like see this greater vision that's like in my head and like send them there. And NoBaked has been the first opportunity for me to do that. Granted, we started it when we were 23, so of course it would be my first opportunity. But yeah, it's been cool to see that actually succeed. Like, I'm glad that we've been able to build a team of other people that are passionate about it, where it's like, you know, we got this Kroger PO this week. It was not part of our production schedule. Kroger has a 7-day lead time, so we have to have it finished by Thursday. Today is Saturday. And I have no doubt in my mind we'll get it finished because there are people that work for us, and there are me and Megan and some of the other leadership team where it's like, well, I'll stay until 1 a.m, like every day, and like get it done because we're kind of like in it together. It's weird. It's like sports, right? Like you're like, why is it so serious? Like it's just a sport, it's just a game. But it's like, yeah, but this is our game, and we like this game, and we want to win this game, and we don't know why. At a certain point, you enjoy playing the game, and you enjoy making the cookie dough, and like doing your job. And there are days where we're like, yeah, we made like, I don't know, like 3,000-4,000 jars a day or whatever. Like those are exciting. So, yeah, that's been like the high for me as a founder.
And you had mentioned too that those that team early on that stuck with you through COVID and everything while you were making that pivot, that they were like pretty young. Are they? You know, I imagine like maybe they had moved on to like different jobs and stuff since then. But do you have like a lot of those people still today?
Yeah, so like 2 of them are still with us. One of them's actually about to go on maternity leave like next week. But like Lexi is like the backbone of our existence. She's our ops manager. She's like way more organized than me and Megan. She's a huge addition to our team. And like the greatest thing about her, and like I've talked to a couple other founders about this, like Lexi had no prior experience in this industry. But she was very much like us. She's a year older than me and Megan. We hired her like right after COVID started. A friend of ours from college that like Lexi was never like our close friend. I was really good friends with her husband. And they moved back here to Nashville, and she was like, yeah, I'm looking for like a part-time thing. And then she came in, and then she would like take on more responsibilities. And then she was like, we could do this differently. We could do this differently. Let me help you document this task. And then she like just took ownership of stuff. And you were like, this is dope. And then there's other people who like manage our stores or like work at the stores where like they have gone from job to job to job, not because they were getting promoted, but because everything just keeps changing. And they didn't care. They liked it. They were like, this is awesome. This is what I want. And I'm like, that's great. I'm glad it is, because like we're all just kind of like broke and like struggling together. None of us are making a ton of money. But like I guess it's a little bit more about like what we're doing every day and about like the I guess like team that we're building. Because at a certain point, anyone that participates in that with me or Megan, they will make, if we ever exit, if we ever do really well, they will also do really well. We've made sure of that. So I think like for us, it's like, okay, like I would like you guys to feel like me and Megan do, which is that like as long as like we're not starving and like we have our rent paid and like we're cool, or for us like our mortgage or like whatever, like great, that's where we want to be. If this all works out and like we all kill it, we like win the Super Bowl of like this industry, then like, we will all make a ton of money. But that's really what it's about. It feels like it's about a little bit more than that.
Yeah, it's like the journey, right? After you're done playing sports, whether college or high school and stuff, it's always like the stuff you miss isn't necessarily the on the field stuff. It's the being in the locker room with the team and going to dinners and stuff, and like the camaraderie and stuff, right? So yeah, I totally get that. So onto a little bit more of like not as fun of a topic, but like what would you say has been like the lowest moment for you as being a founder?
That's a really hard one because there are a lot of lows. I mean, I was telling you earlier about like just random low that we experienced this week.
Yeah.
But if I was to like rack my brain like really, really hard for like what has been the lowest, like worst moment, right before COVID, so like January-ish of like 2020, we had opened 8 stores. We had like 3 more stores that were supposed to open that spring. We were very much out of money. We'd like borrowed money to open stores. We'd never taken outside capital at the time. No outside capital. We've been doing this for 3 years. We'd grown very fast. We had more stores than anyone else in like the cookie dough industry, I guess. And like in our mind, we were like, we're gonna be Crumble, right? And Crumble didn't really exist yet. Like, I guess if we were comparing it to something like in our heads, like who we were chasing was like the Froyo companies, whether it be like Frog or like someone else like that, Pinkberry,
Old Stone.
Yeah, we were like, we could be like them, and like we're on our way to like making that happen. And we had just driven toward that goal so hard that we kind of lost the reason why we were doing what we were doing. So if you would like come to us in January of 2020, you would have found that like me and Megan were broken, like mentally. Like we were just like, I don't know why we're doing this anymore, because we had gone from one store to all those stores. We had gone from making money to not making any money, losing money. You're losing money every month, tens of thousands of dollars, working harder than we ever had. Versus like in the beginning, we were like, it didn't feel like work. It was great. It's fun. One shop, doing your thing, to like just busting your ass, losing money, managing like a workforce. I think at the time of like 60 plus people, multiple managers who just like wouldn't stick around. Like nothing ever worked out. Like everything was just falling in on us. And we realized like we don't have a mission as a brand. We don't really have values, don't really have anything. We just kind of started the company being like, we want to quit our jobs, and then grew and grew and grew and executed this like really small plan we had, which was prove the product, open a store, franchise the store. There's like the 3 steps. We got to franchise the store, and then everything after that just kind of went to shit because we had no other plan. And I think you got to January of 2020 and we were just like Megan was like 7 months pregnant and we were out of money. We owed like $80,000 in bills that we couldn't pay. We hadn't paid our own apartment rent for like a month. By the time we rolled around to COVID, we were like 2 months behind on our apartment rent. Like the only bill we were paying was for our Tesla that was like fucking $2,000 a month. Because you just like, I guess you wanted to be a moron when you were like a year into being an entrepreneur, and you made a bunch of money, and then you're like, I'm gonna spend it, lease a dope car. So like you got all the way to this like winter, and like everything had gone really really well, and then went really really south, and then like you'd completely lost your way of like, I don't have a path forward. And I think that is why it's the darkest moment for us, is because at the time in January of 2020 there was no clear path forward. We had a lot of ideas. We brainstormed and like came up kind of with like a mission among like me, Megan, like some of our managers. We came up with some values. That's where the whole like flavor first thing comes out of, which is one of our core values. We came up with it in 2020, like beginning of 2020. Came up with our mission, which is chef driven, not lab driven. We started to think a lot about like what makes us different and special, and like why would we want to do this for a living rather than money? Like what's the real reason like we enjoy this job? And then I think those things started to like take us out of that, but that was rock bottom, like for sure. No money, no prospects, no plan, and we were 3 years in to doing the thing. And I think that happens to a lot of business owners or entrepreneurs. Like you like 3-4 years into something, and like everything has just gone to shit, and you tried everything and everything has not worked, and you're out of money, and you're out of like hope, and you're just out of everything. And that's truly what like has turned me into the type of person where like really horrible things happen now to us on like a weekly basis. If you were to like actually like look at it versus what happens to normal people, you'd be like, oh, like yeah, on a weekly basis you're faced with some kind of ridiculous thing that seems pretty bad, and it's not. It's nothing compared to what I was facing in like January 2020. I was thinking about like, how am I going to like make sure we're not like homeless, and I have a baby that's going to be born in like 2 months, and I literally have no idea how I'm going to pay my own rent. Like that was scary. This is not scary. And so like you have those moments or those things that like turn you into the entrepreneur that you could be. And it just is completely based on like how you face that. That's also the winter where I realized two fundamental things. The first one being that every day you should wake up and do something that you enjoy. That thing does not need to cost money, and it probably shouldn't. So like for me, that's when I got into like hiking. Hiking is like my thing. I like to hike. Why? I like being in the forest. And then the second fundamental thing that I really realized, man, I'm blanking on now. There's that, and then fundamentally, the fundamental truth that just reminded me what it actually was. Businesses, and you would understand this. Businesses can't go out of business unless the founder is like, okay, we're done. Like, if you feel as the founder, it is time to close up shop and move on to my next journey, that is going out of business. That is not a knock against the founder. That is simply saying, like, you decided to move on. When you understand that, when you finally understand that second fundamental truth, the first one being like, you should wake up every day, enjoy the thing you're doing, because even at rock bottom, you're going to enjoy that one thing. The second thing you should understand is that if you're scared of going out of business, you need to stop being afraid, because the only person that can put you out of business is you. So it's a silly thing to be afraid of. That doesn't apply to people doing over 10 million in revenue, by the way. Doing over 10 million in revenue, you've probably tied yourself into the financial system to a point where like someone can force you into bankruptcy. Doing less than 10 million in revenue, there's a good chance that you're not going to be forced into bankruptcy by your creditors. I don't know who they are, but like, how much money did you borrow? Because if it's less than 500 grand, I don't know how you're going to get forced into bankruptcy. Nobody wants their money that bad. They would rather see you pay it back than like bankrupt you. You have no assets. Yeah, those are the two things to keep in mind, though. Like, you as the founder, you're the only person that can put that thing out of business. And you as the founder, you should make sure you're doing something you do every day, like, makes you happy. They're both very important. Like, the thing that's really, really important about that, though, is that like people shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't wake up every day feeling afraid and like anxious and like whatever else, because I mean, like, yeah, you might have like issues paying your bills. You might be like in a weird spot financially, but like, yes, then you must call it quits and go get a job. if you are sick of that. But you have to be sick of that. You can't, no one else is sick of that for you. No one forced you to do it. You're sick of that. You move on, which a lot of the time it's very important. Phil Knight wrote this in Shoe Dog. It's like part of the entire last chapter. It was like, you have to know when to call quit. Like you have to know when to say like, hey man, like I'm moving on. Like there are better options. Yeah.
It's a strength. That's like, I mean, I'm biased obviously because I did that myself, but like, I think it's a strength because it's the thing that makes you continue pouring yourself into like a failing or just like a business that, that doesn't make, like for me, it was like, it didn't make financial sense because our cost of goods had gotten so high, and to maintain the quality of product that we hung our hat on, it just, we weren't like, our margins had gotten so pinched. Right. And so to me, I'm actually, to me shutting down my company was proof that I know how to make the tough decisions and will make the tough decisions and take emotion and ego out of that decision making. Right. And I think that's something that's incredibly important for any business owner or leader to be able to do, is not make ego driven decisions. And being able to like remove the emotion from it, right? Like if I wanted to keep pushing forward, that was an ego decision I was making because I didn't want people to see me fail. Like I didn't want to be, but it's not about me. It's about the business. It's never about you.
And it's
always about the business.
You're only going to be alive one time. So like 30-year-old Kyle doesn't want to be like grinding away at this thing that he no longer believes in. You want to make sure that you're grinding away at the thing, whatever the thing is that you believe in. So like for me and Megan, we've been very serious about that. Oh, a lot of investors, like whether it be like investors or like people that we talk to, or will commonly be like, yeah, you've been in business for a long time, you must be like good at the thing. And I'm like, no, not good at the thing. Like I haven't figured it out. We spent 2 years in spent the first year doing farmers markets. We spent the subsequent 2 years opening scoop shops. So restaurants, like QSR restaurants. I spent the subsequent year and a half after that doing essentially like D2C. And now I have spent almost another 18 months doing grocery, which means that I've had 4 different businesses. Like some of them are legacy. They're still open. They're the reason that I can pay my mortgage, but I have not scaled anything. I have not figured it out. That's why we keep moving on to the next pivot, because Megan and I are both under the same impression as you probably were. Like, if you can't make this work, I'm moving on. Like, I'm not gonna like bang my head on a wall for a million years, and I'm not gonna bang my head on a wall doing the same thing over and over again. I will continue to pivot and change and innovate, even as a person, like, because being stagnant is just not great. It's not a great way to live. Some friends. I think the best way to like highlight that and like really wrap it up is like, I have some friends that run some food trucks that are like very successful. And one of them is like extremely unhappy with what he's doing. He's been running the food truck for a very long time. He is extremely successful, like runs the truck himself, makes multiple 6 figures. It's great, right? He hates it because he's stagnant. He is not growing. He's not opening a second truck. He's not opening another restaurant. It's just
monotonous, just like same thing every day, every week, every month. Like he knows what to expect and the money comes in, but it's like the excitement was there earlier because he was building the business.
Yeah.
But then he got to that point. He's like, oh, cool, I did it. Now what?
Yeah. I have another friend that runs food trucks, and he has 2 of them and then 2 physicals, and then like sells wholesale to like some bars and like restaurants his product. And he's doing all these different things and he makes no money. He's one of the happiest people I know.
Yeah. There's beauty in that, you know?
Yeah, there really is. Like he's growing, changing. He knows that one day it's gonna get to this thing and he's gonna make money and like but he's excited about it, and he's growing and he's excited about his brand, and like that is so much better than like just being stagnant in a thing where you're like banging your head on a wall and you're like, I want to grow. And you're probably desperate for growth, but you're not doing it. The thing. So like for me and Megan, like it's the same deal. Like what I told you earlier about velocity. It's like I'm on the shelf. Now I'm going to try to get velocity. And if it doesn't work, like I'm going to ask the question very quickly. Like, is this even supposed to be a thing? I'm not just going to like bang my head on a wall for a million years. I will recognize when things take time. right? Like sometimes it takes a very, very long time. If you're doing like restaurants or something, like it will take you 20 years to build a restaurant chain. Like a true good restaurant chain's 20-year project. That's a lifetime. It's a whole career. So yeah, sometimes you have to have like dedication, but you have to know you're moving forward. So if like you feel ever that you're not moving forward, that's probably not worth it anymore.
No, absolutely. I'm going to bring it back a little bit to your original point too about like the lowest moment. You said it was like at the end of 2019.
Yeah, end of 2019, beginning of 2020.
And so do you feel that COVID was like the thing that pulled you out of that actually?
Yeah.
Which is like
COVID,
amazing because it was not something that pulled people out of really, and like that's not very common, right? Like you hear some of those stories, but it's not often. So I just find that super interesting.
It was so uncommon. Like I was in the darkest moments of my life, January, February 2020. Darkest moments of my life. Dude, like
wow.
I had a kid on the way. First kid. Yeah. We were not necessarily like prepped to have a kid. I was not ready. I was not ready to be in the situation I was in. And like if you give that to someone, like that's beautiful. Like But yeah, between like COVID and like my daughter being born, and that's like what brought me out of it. Like March of 2020 was big for me. Like Aria was born March 31st, and then like our stores all closed on March 14th when like COVID like hit America. So like,
holy crap!
Yeah, I mean, it was like a 2-week period.
What a stretch!
That like I would not trade for anything. It's amazing.
Damn. Well, that feels like the perfect time to wrap this up. So yeah. I appreciate it, man.
Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you next time on Peaks and Valleys. Peace.